Hey, good evening. Welcome back to the People's Lawctivist. Tonight we interrogate what generally are two simple English words, which words are capable of being weaponized and have been weaponized. As you go through the session or this particular podcast, I would like you to think as we go along what exactly these two words mean to you as an individual. The primary focus, of course, is the people of Africa, but at the same time, this is relevant to the people of the world, more particularly those people who are generally referred to as the 99%, as against, of course, the 1%, the elites, the oligarchs, the bureaucrats. We look at a scenario today where we ask ourselves, these two simple sounding English words, to what extent do they capture what we have heard being mentioned and referred to as the useless eaters? As you watch this video today, I want you to ask yourself, are you by any chance one of the useless eaters? This is Sabelo Banda coming through to you this evening, the People's Lawctivist. Our topic for tonight speaks to the missing Africans. The missing Africans, the myth of relevant stakeholders in global health governance. We're looking at the pandemic access and benefit system and the politics of false inclusion, addressing ourselves to the World Health Organization's silent war on African sovereignty. As we proceed, the two English words that I'm looking at, relevant and stakeholder, where as we go through, we have to actually conceptualize and understand that if you are not relevant, it necessarily means you are irrelevant. The World Health Organization is currently sitting in Geneva discussing the Global Pandemic Preparedness Treaty, or agreement as they have called it, and getting ready to put mechanisms in place together with legalities in place to ensure that this agreement is binding on the people of the world. Whether you are part of the useful eaters or the useless eaters, it really doesn't matter. But the greatest impact will be upon those who are considered as useless eaters. So let's look at this. As the discussions are going on in Geneva, they started on the 3rd of November and they're going on until the 7th of November 2025, whereby when they agreed on the Pandemic Preparedness Agreement, Section 12 was missing, And Section 12 speaks to the pathogen access and benefit sharing system, which system basically talks to a scenario where countries will be expected to literally start looking around for pathogens, and these pathogens will be shared more particularly with the pharmaceutical industry, with manufacturers, and whichever country comes up with pathogens which are considered as potentially pandemic creating pathogens will benefit from that. They'll get money out of this. But the people over and above the government representatives, of which we don't even know how these people got to the point of representing the different African governments, will sit there with what is referred to as relevant stakeholders. Their relevance is what we now have to interrogate, more particularly from a perspective informed by the question, where are the Africans? Where are the Africans in all this? More particularly that this will be binding on Africa. It will be binding on the million-plus people of the continent. Yet the question that we pose today is, where are the missing Africans? Let's take it back a bit. Let's look at the dictionary meaning of these words. Irrelevant, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, speaks to being closely connected or appropriate to what is being done. So now, the World Health Organization, in the use of the word relevant, refers to what it calls relevant stakeholders. And it is the relevant stakeholders who are being consulted in this process. The question that arises is, as Africans today, as part of the group that constitutes the so-called 99%, are we being deemed relevant or irrelevant? Because relevance on its own sounds objective. It's basically something that is decided according to one's ability or significance in as far as the issue under discussion. But in this particular instance, the question that arises is, who decides relevance? Who decides whether a particular entity or a particular individual is relevant or not? Of course, it's the World Health Organization, where according to the weaponized usage of the word relevant, it simply means those people who are deemed to be in alliance with the thinking and therefore the approach of this entity. For as long as you don't speak the same language, for as long as you are perceived however which way as a threat, you are not relevant. You are absolutely irrelevant, regardless of the fact that whatever it is that they are talking about has an impact on your life. So now, as we proceed, we talk to the aspect that real relevance is not decided by power. Real relevance is determined by relationship. With what they are discussing in Geneva today, the question that arises is there a relationship between what they are talking about and myself? Is there a relationship between what they are actually seeking to legislate on relevant to you? It's not about power. It's not about being accepted and admitted into a particular circle or grouping. It is about relationship. It is about ancestry. Where ancestry, we are talking about ancestral knowledge. We're talking indigenous knowledge. We're talking experience. So now, as we proceed, we look as well at the meaning of stakeholder, where a stakeholder basically is a person or a group of people with an interest or concern in something. This is according to the Cambridge Dictionary, where this interest, where this concern is mainly related to a business or an organization or an issue that impacts upon the people that are basically considered as stakeholders. When the World Health Organization talks to stakeholders, they talk about engaging all the relevant stakeholders. So the irrelevant stakeholders are not engaged. Those who are deemed to be of no consequence, those whose lives are deemed to be meaningless, those whose voice, whether heard or not heard, has no bearing on the issue at hand. That's how the World Health Organization relates these two words: relevant stakeholder. We see that these two words, within the context of global governance, have been hijacked. Basically, what they now mean is influence by those with money, those with institutional status, and these are the people who in many ways are deemed to be the ones to be listened to, those who will be heard. We are talking here literally about the special interest lobbyists. If you cannot justify your existence as a special interest lobbyist, if you cannot justify your existence by virtue of the fact that you are funding this organization, by virtue of the fact that you are a beneficiary of the system, then you are deemed irrelevant. How does it work, and how can it be that an entity that purports to speak to and address the health of the world decides that those who practice natural healing, we're talking here about naturopaths, we're talking here about indigenous healers, we're talking here about phytopaths, aromapaths. How do we leave those out whilst they are part of the healing system? How do we arrive, or maybe let me not even say we, because if I say we, I make myself part of this particular decision making, of which I am not. How do they arrive at the fact that allopathy and those people who are associated with big pharma, those people who are associated with the donors, those people who are associated with the manufacturing of vaccines, and those people who are associated with various aspects pertaining to allopathic manufacture are the only relevant stakeholders? Whereas, according to the World Health Organization itself, no less than 80% of the people of Africa rely or have as their primary point of reference in as far as healthcare is concerned the traditional healing systems. But the traditional healers are not there. The traditional healers have been sidelined. They are irrelevant according to the definition of the World Health Organization on relevant stakeholders. The naturopaths are not there. What sense does that make? How can that honestly make any sense? The people whose lived experience is within the context of natural healing, but they are not part of the equation. They are not deemed as relevant stakeholders. They are just somewhere out there. The laws will be decided, the laws will be passed, and no reference to them, but they are expected to comply with these laws. It's amazing that the true stakeholders, those who carry the cost, those who bear the risk and live the reality, and not those who simply attend meetings, are the ones who are deemed irrelevant. How is it that the ordinary people are the ones who are perceived as the market for these products that will be manufactured, but those are the same people who are deemed irrelevant? As we ask the question as to who exactly is taking us forward, and further asking the question, where are the Africans? As we further interrogate the issue about the missing Africans, we have to further go deeper into the people sitting there and speaking on behalf of the African people. And when I say on behalf of the African people, I say it regardless of the lack of knowledge as to where they got their mandate from. From where I sit right now, which is South Africa, I'm not aware of the South African Parliament ever sitting down and deliberating on the Pandemic Agreement. Yet there is someone sitting in Geneva right now purporting to speak for South Africa. We have a scenario where 47 African countries basically clubbed together under what is referred to as the World Health Organization, Africa region. Zimbabwe spoke on behalf of the Africa region and basically endorsed and supported the pandemic treaty or pandemic agreement, and supported the PABS pathogen access and benefit sharing system. Amazingly, Ethiopia supports and says they align themselves with the Zimbabwean position. Namibia aligns itself with the Zimbabwean position. Central African Republic aligns itself with the Zimbabwean position. South Africa aligns itself with the Zimbabwean position. It's not even correct to really talk to it as a Zimbabwean position because Zimbabwe was speaking on behalf of the Africa region. What I find so critically amazing, there is what now seems to be some sort of awakening within Africa, where Africa is beginning to talk to issues of sovereignty, speaking to issues of having a voice. And we have Namibia talking about how we have experienced colonialism, we will not be subjected to medical colonialism. But they all accept the position as stated by Zimbabwe, which emphasizes the importance and relevance of relevant stakeholders. How can these African countries honestly speak to so-called relevant stakeholders, yet they do not protect the right of African people to be heard? They don't protect the right of African healers. They don't protect the rights of African naturopaths to be heard. On what basis then are they talking to our sovereignty? On what basis are they talking to the importance of African people taking this forward as laws that will impact upon the African continent? Even worse are the African parliamentarians. Where are you? Members of parliament, this is directed at you. Where are you right across the continent? On what basis are you allowing this to go on under your watch? On what basis are you allowing yourselves included to be considered as irrelevant? I cannot even say irrelevant stakeholders because you are not stakeholders. Africa is not a stakeholder in this particular process. Africa is simply there to be told what to do, and it does as told. Basically, the people we have put in power, in the belief that they are protecting our interests, are merely being told what to do. Jump, and the question they ask is how high? Not why. Not to question the basis of the reason for this jump. Some of you are busy running around and pretending to be Pan-Africanist and pretending to be talking for the benefit of the people. But you are silent on this issue that has a major impact on African people. Where are you? We need to hear your voices. And in hearing your voices, we need to hear how you intend to defend us as African people. You are rendering yourselves irrelevant if you cannot speak up for the benefit of the people. When one analyzes the list of the so-called stakeholders, and yes, the links pertaining to what is going on and the people who are deemed to be stakeholders, the link is right there at the bottom. Click on that link and you will see. You will find that more than 80% of the entities that purport to speak as the so-called relevant stakeholders are either from Europe or America. And those who have presence in America, or rather in Africa, are funded by entities in Europe and America. No community-based African organizations, no locally funded African organizations. So now we have a scenario where the so-called relevant stakeholders are all of a European inclination. Yet we in Africa will be expected, once this so-called agreement becomes binding, to be subjected to that. How can we be subjected to a process that we have not been part of? How can we have so-called leadership in the form of members of parliament, in the form of cabinets, in the form of presidents, in the form of the regional economic blocs, the African Union, the African CDC, the African Commission, failing to represent and protect our interests? The time has come, and the time has now for us to begin to interrogate the relevance of the people who call themselves our leaders. It's not enough for you to stand on platforms and purport to speak Africanness and purport to speak Pan-Africanism, yet in real terms you are afraid to address the issues as they are. Why are you not challenging the system and saying, where are the African stakeholders? Because that is the fundamental aspect. It's not enough that the AU is there, that SADC is there, that the African Medical Research Council is there, that the University of Botswana is there, that the University of Namibia is there, University in Addis Ababa is there, the University of Science and Technology in Namibia is there. To what extent do these institutions represent the ordinary African man, woman, and child? On the contrary, these institutions, in the main, represent academic elites and are largely tied to Western research frameworks. They don't have traditional medicine. They don't have naturopathy as part of their ethos. So we have to ask ourselves the question, where are the missing Africans? In as much as we have Africans in Geneva right now, by virtue of the fact that they have rendered themselves irrelevant, they are missing, regardless of sitting there. Because the ideology, the funding that anchors this entire process is pharmaceutical dominance. The biodata capture. Indigenous systems are not there. Where and when will they find this expression? Where are the traditional healers' councils? Why have they been left out of this process? Why has the World Health Organization, regardless of speaking to the recognition and therefore application of knowledge pertaining to African, or rather indigenous healing, why have these ones been left out? Why are there no continental networks of natural and indigenous healers in this process? If we are genuinely talking about the health of the people, why are all the health systems not being represented? We have to pose this question and place it directly at the doorstep of every parliament in Africa. What are you doing exactly? How are you protecting the people of Africa. You are there because we as ordinary Africans believe that you are our representatives. Are you even aware of what is going on in Geneva right now? Are you aware of how Africa is being represented and presented in Geneva right now? Are you even aware that according to the African Charter, we have a right to self-determination? Self-determination should also speak to our health. And these listed stakeholders do not represent African people, more especially those who are involved in natural healing. They are not in any manner whatsoever represented in this. When are you as parliamentarians going to get to a point where you come to the ground and hear what the people have to say? Next thing, we'll be sitting with a document that does not represent us, and we have to now start dealing with that and talking to that and seeing how it fits into our framework. In as much as, yes, we have something like the Third World Network there, but it does not speak to our African issues. All these issues do not talk to the Nagoya protocols. It does not even talk to the World Health Organization traditional medicine strategy of 2014 to 2023, which was deemed to put traditional healing systems on par with allopathy. But we've been deprived of that. We have to ask ourselves, why is it that relevant stakeholders are simply those who have a financial benefit in this whole process? Yes, there are some, the NGOs, that don't have a financial benefit directly, but are funded by these same entities. We have universities who are funded by these same entities, where now relevance is a gatekeeping device. It serves as a tool, not of inclusion but qualification for purposes of exclusion. You only qualify if you follow the narrative. You only qualify if you speak the language that we want to hear. For as long as you come with something contrary to what we want to hear, you are filtered out as being non-relevant. How can we allow this to happen to us? How can the 99% allow themselves to be dictated to by this 1%? Stakeholders, particularly relevant stakeholders, has become a euphemism for approved participant, not authentic representatives. It's only those who have been approved because they are going to say what we would like to hear, or on the contrary, they are not going to challenge the dominant thinking and come with something that is people-oriented. My brothers and sisters, in short, this whole concept and aspect of recognition or relevance speaks to recognition by power, not by the people. What is currently under discussion has some serious implications for us, the relevant people. The reason why we become relevant is because when these laws are now being applied, we are the ones who are expected to comply. We are the ones who will be penalized should it be deemed that we have violated these laws, yet no one sees the reason to talk to us about these issues. Under the current model, stakeholder is a status that is granted. It's not inherent. It's not contingent. It's basically those dominant institutions, the World Health Organization and the people that it chooses to give status to. It's the World Bank, it's the donor blocks, it's those entities like CP, like Gavi, like Banks, Gates Foundation that are deemed to be relevant. Where are the people? By right, the Constitution of the World Health Organization recognizes member states, but the weaponization of relevant stakeholder has written the relevant people out of the equation. So now I will part by saying, on what basis can we allow ourselves to be caught in a cycle of dependence? On what basis can you, as African parliamentarians, allow yourselves to sit silently and pretend that you do not hear, that you do not see? Because you do hear, you do see, but whose interests are you representing? Are you representing the interests of the donor funders? Are you representing the interests of this health organization? Are you representing other actors whom we do not know by name and we cannot refer to, but sacrificing the same people from whose taxes you rely? The same people who have put you in those positions of authority. People of Africa, people of the world, particularly the so-called 99%, particularly you, the so-called useless eaters, the time has come, and the time is now for us to begin to challenge the basis upon which we have bureaucrats deciding our future without us being held, without us being heard. For anything to be meaningful in as far as our health is concerned, we have to be part of that discussion. We cannot have global health governance decisions taken in our name, on our behalf, in some cases by people whom we have elected into positions of authority to be custodians of our interests and our future. And in some cases, some bureaucrats we don't even know by name, some bureaucrats whose office we do not even understand, are sitting there and taking decisions in our names. And next thing we'll be told that the countries that we belong to have agreed to this particular process. Yet those countries have not taken us into their confidence as the people of those particular countries. I call upon each and every one of us, every person, every healer, every community custodian, to stand up and begin to question the basis upon which our parliaments can be sidelined. Parliamentarians, how do you allow yourselves to be sidelined in this manner? How can you allow yourselves to be deemed irrelevant? And at the same time, how do you betray us like this? In our next episode, as we go deeper into the missing Africans, we will look at the zero draft of the pathogen access and benefit sharing system and see what the implications are for Africa. By the end, when they are done this week, we will again interrogate the issues. Africans, beware. 99% beware. Your future, your children's futures, the future of those yet to be born is being determined by the smallest possible percentage of people given the global population. And yet people are sitting there quietly and trusting government. Government is nothing without the people. The social contract is between government and the people, with the people giving the government mandate. When did we ever mandate anyone to take decisions for us in the manner that decisions are being taken right now? A lot of parliamentarians are not even aware of what their countries contributed in as far as the text of this particular treaty, more particularly the section 12, which is the most critical part of this agreement. So, stand up. Ask your members of parliament to take a stand. Find out what your members of parliament know or do not know about this whole process. The ones that I have had occasion to have a conversation with on this issue have no clue what is going on. There is no authentic representation grounded on Ubuntu jurisprudence. Participation by those who bear ancestral, ecological, and community responsibility for life and healing, the naturopaths, the traditional healers. I will continually emphasize that for as long as we are talking about health, and the only thing that we talk about is allopathy, and we talk about vaccines, and we talk about the pharmaceutical industry, then we have not even started having a meaningful discussion. More particularly, again, I will repeat this point, with the World Health Organization telling us that no less than 80% of the people in Africa have as their primary health care indigenous healing. Why do we leave those out? Brothers and sisters, I'll round off by saying, get up, do your bit. This is not one man's fight. It's not an organization's fight. This is about us as the people taking charge of our personal sovereignty. Sovereignty is not just about what government says, where we talk about national sovereignty. There is no national sovereignty which does not respect personal sovereignty. Sovereignty starts with the individual. As I said, we will be looking next at the implications for Africa. We'll be looking at a summary of everything that they are talking to this particular week and formulating how we can begin to take a stand and formulate what is meaningful to us. Thank you so much. Please subscribe, like, and share this video. Press that notification button so that you'll never miss anything from the People's Lawctivist. Thank you. Till we meet again, keep thinking about how we advance our interests. And in closing, as always, I'll say, be the best that you were created to be. Remember, today I am better than I was yesterday. Thank you so much.